Here we go.
This is the Chris.
Gonna mute for a moment for our evil overlords. Tracy Bogert, what is up?
Now, Chris Duel.
Oh my goodness gracious. Do we have a lot to talk about this morning in the world of sports? It is a throwback Thursday, and Jerry Jones is going to throw it back about 25 years. Wow. My goodness. What a story. A Jerry Jones scandal. First reported by the Dallas Morning News, and we will get into it. It's not like some dude's blog reported a woman with these allegations that Jerry's her daddy, but the Dallas Morning News, arguably the periodical of record in the city of Dallas, not good for Jerry and the Jones family. We'll get into it and so much more. Welcome in. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Jeremy KOLOK is your Soundscape stylist. And Shannon, you were the one who sent this story to me yesterday. I was minding my own business. I was getting ready for Spurs and the Toronto Raptors, and my hopes that Coach Gregory Charles Popovich would ascend to the top of the mountain for most wins in NBA regular season history. That was not to be, but this Jerry Jones scandal that you discovered first among the three of us, man, oh man, this is going to be big today, and this is going to be big for a while, I do believe.
It's been quite the offseason for the Dallas Cowboys, specifically Jerry Jones. Weeks ago, came out that there was about a little over $2 million paid out to some former Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders due to a locker room incident where a former head executive had kind of snuck his way in and said, no, I didn't know that they were changing. Well, okay. And executive has since retired, removed himself from the organization, hush, and then that story breaks. Not a coincidence. I'm sure Jerry probably gets sued all of the time because he has so much money. A lot of people probably think he'd just pay me to go away rather than deal with a court case, whatever, whether or not what they're suing for has any validity. However, this one, it'll be pretty easy to tell whether or not she is, in fact, a descendant of Jerry Jones because of DNA and DNA testing. This 25-year-old, apparently her mother and Jerry got together at a time when she became pregnant. They came to an agreement that Jerry would provide for them in the case that they did not reveal that they had a child together. In this case, this 25-year-old woman. And now this 25-year-old woman wants her due. She wants a piece of the Dallas Cowboys. She wants a piece of Jerry Jones. She wants to live that yacht life. She wants to live the life of luxury when you're a Jones and everyone knows about it. I don't know that I can necessarily blame her. I don't know what her situation is otherwise. But why 25 years? Why now? Why right now is the question I have for this young woman.
Well, and that's often the question in situations like this. And, it often goes to, if we haven't walked a mile in her shoes, God knows what she, what her life has been like. And apparently, at least through her childhood, her mother, according to this story, and again, I underscore, this was the Dallas Morning News first reporting this story, getting a hold of a court document, this lawsuit filed in Dallas. That court document has since been sealed. It was sealed yesterday. Now, one of the things that happens when you're a rich billionaire like Robert Kraft or Jerry Jones, you can get things sealed. In Robert Kraft's massage case, when he was getting a little massage and a little extra, little more than the massage, there were video cameras in the massage parlor in Florida. Robert Kraft is a billionaire. That video of Robert Kraft that was said to have had actual footage of Robert Kraft getting, how should we put this, some extra care to certain parts of his body during his massage. He got that quashed. That video was never seen. Yesterday, this lawsuit was sealed. However, the Dallas Morning News got a hold of the whole thing. They got a hold of it. They used Public Records Acts. They went to the courthouse and they got it. They reported on it, making this story seem very, very legitimate. And one of the angles here that we're hearing, Shannon, this 25-year-old woman, apparently, among other things, she's a congressional aide. She works for a United States congressman. And apparently one of the things that maybe triggered this, or maybe it's a subplot to this story, apparently when she was going to the White House, White House security does extensive background checks because, now in the era of terrorism and in the era of, rogue people who could be operatives from another country, Russia, and have been in this country for a long time in a sleeper cell or something. She had to, and you can't, it's a felony. If you fill out this paperwork to get into the White House, it's a federal form. You can't lie on this form. So she was asked as a congressional aide to accompany that congressman into the White House. Who are your parents? Who's your real father? Who's your biological father? And she said, I'm not going to lie. It's Jerry Jones. So among other things, and I do agree with you, Shannon, she grew up and reportedly her mother, who was a counter worker at American Airlines, she apparently worked the reservation desk at American Airlines, had this relationship, according to court documents, with Jerry Jones, got pregnant, had this baby who was Jerry Jones. And by the way, Jerry Jones told her, "Oh, I can't have kids. I can't have kids, baby." So, and it turned out he's got 3 kids. So Jerry, something was still working 25 years ago. So many angles to this story, Shannon. But one thing strikes me as well. You know me, I believe in curses. I believe in the Sports Illustrated curse. I believe in the Madden curse. I believe in the blue jersey jinx of the Cowboys. This woman is 25 years old. How long has it been since the Dallas Cowboys have been to a Super Bowl? 25 years. I think we're going on 26. We could probably calculate from her age when the pregnancy might have began. You've heard of the curse of the Bambino in baseball. You had the curse of the Bambino. Maybe we've got the curse of the Jerry Jones love child here, Shannon. I don't want to go all cosmic here right away at 6:18 in the morning. But notice, since this child was conceived, and again, we don't know yet for sure, but you're right. DNA testing, we can find out in pretty short order if she's Jerry Jones's daughter. And I think she's probably pretty confident about this. If indeed she's Jerry Jones' daughter, since this child was conceived, Shannon Salty Sweeney, the Cowboys have never returned to the Super Bowl. Could this be a new curse, the Jerry Jones love child curse? And if he makes it right with her, would that remove the curse? Your thoughts on that?
That's mind-blowing to me. And you just asked me if he makes it right with her, would that remove the curse? I then turn back to you and say, what at this point is making it right? It's 25 years. She was sworn to silence at the age of 1. Their family was paid $375,000, and she always feared that revealing who her true father was would mean that her mother would lose support, that she would lose financial support. So now, again, why at this moment? What is it that she wants out of it? What does she feel will make it right? And ultimately, will that lead to Dallas Cowboys victories in the playoffs and not just the regular season?
And I think, a lot of people are asking what is her motivation here? And as you mentioned, and I think probably that could be part of it as well. We all kind of fantasize about A, winning the lottery, or B, having a parent or a relative who's a millionaire or a billionaire who's going to help us out. So yes, indeed, she may want a little more something in her life. And as you point out, her mother entered into this agreement when she was an infant. She wasn't able to make this decision at age 0 to 1. And I hear so many people who have been adopted just want to know who their parents are and want to establish their identity. And it's possible, and we'll learn more in the coming days, it's possible that this woman just didn't want to live a lie anymore. I mean, if her mom was keeping this quiet on the behalf of Jerry Jones, and obviously, yes, her mom, according to court documents and reporting by the Dallas Morning News, was being very well compensated for this. And then apparently she was as well. Apparently there's even, certain lump sums that this 25-year-old woman was to receive. And we've got her name. I guess we can mention her name at some point. It's not like her name is now part of the public record, and she's a 25-year-old. She's an adult. But she was to receive, lump sums of money that were significant upon adulthood as well. So Shannon, I think it's the full gamut from, hey man, he's my dad, to B, we've been lying for you, Dad, for 25 years. I'm sick and tired of it. To I don't want to live a lie anymore. I don't, this is my dad. That's my mom. That's what happened in 1996. And this is who I am. And I am going to assert my freedom to be who I am and to let the world know who I am. I think it psychologically, Shannon, on so many levels, it's absolutely fascinating.
Hey, stop this crap, okay?
And on certain levels, not surprising. From there's long been rumors of Jerry. He's a handsy guy, and that. So for this to come out, I don't know. Will Alexandra Davis eventually become Alexandra Jones? Maybe that's part of it. She just wants the Jones name. She wants to be part of that maybe she is a Dallas Cowboys fan. She feels like, it'd be wrong of me to be a fan of anything else. Maybe she had the realization that you did. Like, listen, I am the key here to getting the Dallas Cowboys back to be ultimately America's team that no one can deny. Because right now it's just kind of a joke to everyone who's not a Cowboys fan. That she being in part of the picture, part of the organization, is the missing piece right now for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. Jeremy, you're not 25 yet, are you? You're getting close. Okay, so she's a little older than me.
Right? Yeah.
But what's your take on all of this as someone who's very close to this young lady in age?
Maybe she just, I think this was mentioned, maybe she wants to get in on the Dallas Cowboys organization. I don't know if, Shannon, like you said, maybe she has all the answers and whatnot, but from like a realistic legal perspective, there might be something, and I don't mean to insinuate that she's in this for money, but there might be something in Jerry's will that when he passes on, whenever that does happen, that then it's set in stone. There's no changing anything. It doesn't matter how many people come forward with how many evidence that they're related to him. I would think that there's something like that. I'm not saying that's her motivation, but as far as at least like making this happen, whatever her motivation was, if it was something like Chris said, like she wants a relationship with him or something, let's be honest, she's running out of time here if she wanted to do this while Jerry is still walking around on this earth and whatnot. So as far as timing, I think she definitely wanted to do this while Jerry is still a functioning human being. Otherwise, she wouldn't have done this right now. But as far as waiting 25 years, I don't really get it. Maybe she feels like her life is stable. She's an adult now. It won't affect anything. And like I said, if she wants to do this while Jerry is still with us, now would be the time rather than later.
Wow, excellent takes. And here's the other thing and it's a big question, Shannon, that you raised, and a lot of people are going to ask it. Why are you waiting until now? Part of it is maybe she looks at this as if I go public, I am betraying my mother. Her mother entered into this agreement. Part of the agreement was you stay quiet and you'll receive this money from Jerry. So, she's probably been torn since she was a teenager, at least, on, if I go public, I'm betraying my mother and my mother's agreement. Just before we go to break, the Cowboys won Super Bowl 30, Shannon, on January 28th, 1996, over the Pittsburgh Steelers, 27-17. Thank you, Neil O'Donnell, for throwing those 2 direct interceptions to MVP Cowboy defensive back Larry Brown. Alexandra Davis was born on December 16th, 1996, a little over 11 months later. So we know a couple of things. When she was conceived, Jerry was a Super Bowl champion. Jerry had just won the Super Bowl without Jimmy. He showed the world he could do it his way with Barry Switzer. And just doing a little Holmes High School math, Shannon, Alexandra is born December 16th, 1996. So that's the 12th month. 12 minus 9 is 3. So she is conceived, again, awaiting paternity. We don't know for sure, but whoever her father is, she was conceived in all probability in March of 1996. So if this is a curse, if this is the curse of the Jerry Jones love child, the Cowboys will never return to the Super Bowl again until he makes it right with her. That curse kicked in March and in December of 1996. The Cowboys have never been to the Super Bowl since. I'm just saying.
Let's move on.
I think I found her Twitter account, Chris.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Are you serious?
I'm pretty sure I found it.
Oh my God.
No one's following her since this news broke.
Alexandra Davis.
But
yeah.
We've got her.
And what we'll get into it. Her and her mom were on some reality show. It was like the rich house people of Dallas. We'll get into so she may. Little Love Child there by Diana Ross and the Supremes. Jeremy KOLOK all over it this morning. What if she is Jerry's worst nightmare and she is seeking the spotlight now, as she and her mother did on the reality show? Oh my God. Lots to talk about. We will talk Spurs. Our good friend Taro Kotani, what a night for him last night at the Spurs game. We'll get into that as well. And Carson Wentz, welcome back to the NFC East. Rack up 2 more wins a year for America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Things aren't all bad for Jerry in the last 24 hours. Quick break. High five play of the day is next. James Allen from the Pro Football Hall of Fame and Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics, a little bit later in the show. Wow, what a day. Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. We'll be back in a sec. Wow. All right. Shannon found her Twitter handle. So yeah, I have the Dallas Morning News article here. But and I want to get to that part about the reality show she was in with her mom. To me, that's fascinating. Yeah. She and her mother were in the 3rd and final season of a reality show called Big Rich Texas that was based in Dallas, that followed the lives of 5 wealthy women and their daughters. Her mom, Cynthia Davis, said she was living off a trust fund. That's interesting. All right, let me see if Alexandra Davis. She retweeted 15 hours ago. She's in DC. For some reason, I'm hearing that in my ears. The Stevie Wonder song. That's okay. Okay. Yeah, she's retweeting this guy, Ronnie Jackson. Man, this looks like her. Is Ronnie Jackson a congressman? From Dallas, Texas 13. Wow. Ronnie Jackson. Yeah, wow. What's amazing about this is Alexandra Davis on Twitter only has 32 followers. She now has 33. I just followed her on Twitter. Good morning, Carl Fisher. Taro, by the way, and we'll mention this. And good morning, Beth Settle. Hey, Beth. Yeah, after the game last night, and he's got social media on this, Taro Kotani hanging out after the game on the court with Keldon Johnson's family. And when Keldon Johnson came out of the locker room, he hung out with Taro. There's photos. So let's see who we got in here. Tracy Bogert, Sam Tobias, Anthony Del Toro, Beth Settle, Taro Kotani, Jerry Lauder, Hector Gomez, Lucinda Sullivan, Jason Paniagua, Carl Fisher. Yeah, Carl, this would have been a good time to hang out with Taro. It's been like a whirlwind trip for Taro. Taro was on the floor yesterday. I saw footage playing basketball on the AT&T Center court and hitting a top of the key jump shot. Guy's been unbelievable. Okay, now I want to Google Big Rich, Texas. Okay. Big Rich, Texas. And Jerry, if this is true, Jerry cannot be excited when they went on Big Rich, Texas. That couldn't have been a good thing. What's happening?
Years ago, when I had heard that Sean Kemp was coming back to town to play a game, I was going to get a ticket and go sit courtside and yell out, "Daddy!"
Yeah, I want to say Jerry Jones was my dad, too. That would be, maybe I'll join in this suit.
Yeah, there you go.
Crazy, man.
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter at Chris Duel and at Shannon B. Sweeney.
Jeremy KOLOK developing a Jerry Jones playlist. We just had Love Child by Diana Ross and the Supremes. Now let's add Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. My goodness gracious. Shannon Salty Sweeney getting the Detective Medal of the Month, as she has, and I checked, and even the congressman who she works for, she's posting a bunch of his stuff. She seems to have found Alexandra Davis's, and that's the woman who is suing Jerry Jones, or alleging in court documents that he is her father. But and then I went, Shannon, during the break, and the high five play of the day is coming up, but I found another photo of her from a story on the ladies of Big Rich, Texas, where they headed to Los Angeles for a reunion show. See, and again, if you're just joining us, it's going to be one of the huge stories today. It started to break yesterday, and it's all over the place today. The fact that she was on this reality show, Shannon, suggests to me that she might be seeking the limelight, in which case that's going to be, if she just won't go away, that's going to be Jerry Jones' worst nightmare until perhaps he gives her what she wants. And it remains to be seen just exactly what she wants.
I might say that had this reality show that she was on didn't take place 9 years ago, which would have made her 16, so still a minor at the time.
Okay.
And looking at
Okay.
her versus her mother looks like she's maybe used a little bit of that Jerry Jones money to change her face. And so I would say that it was more of a mom thing than the kid thing.
Her mom.
And you look at her Twitter,
that's kind of
she only has 32 followers at the moment, and she retweets
up to
a fair
33
amount.
now.
Oh,
I just
30.
followed
Oh,
her.
there you go. She retweets, but she has yet to
Including
actually
me.
tweet or say anything herself. So if she is going that angle, she's not doing a very good job. She's not marketing herself well enough, if you ask me.
Okay, that's true. And I mean, she's a congressional aide. She works for a congressman, and she lists on her Twitter page Washington, D.C. as her home. So, yeah, it sure may seem that she is pursuing, a serious career in politics or in working, with lawmakers. Anyway, we will get back to that. Just a fascinating story. And wow, what ramifications does this lead to for Jerry Jones? We'll get into that and so many other stories. Carson Wentz has a new home and it's back in the NFC East. We'll get into that. Coach Greg Popovich and the Spurs fail to get the win last night. They better do it on Friday night because that's Taro Kotani's last game in San Antonio, and Taro wants to see history. Before we get into all of that, it is time for the high five play of the day. We do it every morning at this time. And no, we are not giving a high five to Alexandra Davis or Jerry Jones. We'll go a different route this morning. The high five play of the day is appropriately sponsored by High Five, 2 locations in the Austin area. And among the 3 of us, nobody knows High Five better than Shannon Salty Sweeney. Shannon, tell us about High Five.
Well, and if you're thirsty, because it is Thursday, it's a great opportunity to go head over to High Five, try one of their new cocktails for 2022, or get a margarita because they are $5 on Thursday, along with half price axe throwing. So if you've never done that, it's a great day to head over to High Five. Chris, today's High Five is going to an NBA team, specifically the Utah Jazz. Since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we've seen a lot of displays of solidarity across the world of sports, through different sports, throughout different countries, throughout different organizations. But the Utah Jazz here, along in partnership with Airbnb, have taken it a step further. Not only have they displayed moments of solidarity, but they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're putting Ukrainian refugees up in housing because so many people are trying to flee and find safety during this time. And so the Utah Foundation, again, along with Airbnb, are funding 32,200 nights of housing for Ukrainian refugees. And by comparison, that number is equivalent to nearly double the capacity of the Utah Jazz Arena. So that is a lot of people. Airbnb recently announced that they were looking to house up to 100,000 refugees. So this is Utah Jazz stepping up and assisting. They say for anyone else who's involved with Airbnb that they would love discount stays available to refugees, as well as any donations that are possible. Chris, I love this because so often we see teams, they'll put like a little sticker or patch or armband or something to show solidarity, but to do something like this, I think is a huge step. It's next level, and so I've got to give kudos and a high five to the Utah Jazz today.
Oh, I am so with you. I love this story. I love that the Utah Jazz did this. I hope other NBA teams, including the Spurs, consider following suit. We talk about it all the time. Use your platform for good. And, you look at a situation like this, so many lives are being lost in Ukraine and you feel helpless. No matter who you are, you've got a chance. I've heard of some other just individuals, buying Airbnb locations and just gifting them, making them available to refugees from Ukraine. And I hope, Shannon, as we talk about the Utah Jazz doing this, I think of the San Antonio Spurs and, Coach Greg Popovich, who is an international Renaissance man, his major at the Air Force Academy was Soviet studies. He, went into the military studying what was going on in the Soviet Union. He obviously, and part of the Soviet Union at the time was Ukraine. He has paid very, very close attention to what's happened on that side of the world. It's going to be interesting moving forward to see, what, if anything, the Spurs might do in a regard like what the Utah Jazz did, as you described, and also just to kind of continue to listen. Pop often shares his thoughts, and I think they're very educated thoughts on the world, on what's going on in the world. So it'll be interesting in the coming days as well to pay attention to Greg Popovich's perspective on what's going on there. And it's so funny when Pop says something, you hear people going, "Hey man, just stick to basketball." Well, dude's schooled at a military academy on Soviet studies. In fact, I think he speaks fluent Russian as well, which was part of his training.
I wouldn't put it past
find
him.
those things out in the coming days as well.
I feel like Pop is a man of mystery.
Some people have theorized, and nobody knows. Some people have theorized that, coming out of the Air Force, that, Pop was at least on a trajectory studying Soviet studies and, speaking Russian to, someday maybe be in the CIA. Who knows? And some people,
maybe he is.
It's a conspiracy theory. So, exactly. I don't know if you saw that. There was a cartoon. I'm forgetting the name of it. Somebody on the live feed will know it. Where it was like the Spurs were like the A team, and the fact that they play basketball by day was just a front. That Pop and Tim Duncan and Manu and Tony would like get on airplanes in the middle of the night and go save the world and do these military operations, and they'd be rappelling into war zones and helping people who need help. It was it was done very, very well. And I'm sure somebody listening right now knows the name of it. It's on YouTube. It was a funny comedy YouTube cartoon series a few years ago, but yeah, so we'll see. But way to go, Utah Jazz, and anybody who can help, from this side of the world, please help. And was it Elon Musk who, through his satellite system, ensured there would be internet? Yes. I mean, I don't think Putin planned on that. We are seeing a lot of video, a lot of photos, and a lot of reports from people in Ukraine, which is what it's like to be invaded and bombed and in a war zone. And, the court of public opinion is not smiling upon Vladimir Putin at this time.
No, it is not. No, it is not. I'm still thinking about that pop cartoon. Not all heroes wear capes, Chris.
Yeah, if somebody knows what the name of that cartoon was, it was brilliant. It was absolutely, and part of it was the fact, the whole thing that Tim and the Spurs were kind of boring. That was all, just a front, it was a cover just to make sure nobody would ever believe that they were CIA operatives and a special elite secretive paramilitary team. And again, it looks like it was portrayed after the A team, with Mr. T and George Popard. So, all right, Shannon, we got a lot to cover this morning. And obviously this Jerry Jones story is huge, and it will suck up a lot of oxygen, not only on this show, but in the sports world today and moving forward. And so we will get back to it now and then throughout the morning. Certainly James Allen, going to be interesting. James is a friend of and a fellow board member with Jerry Jones on the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So I don't know. And James is always very forthcoming. I was about to say, I don't know how forthcoming James is going to be comfortable being with us this morning as we bring that up with him, but he's been very forthcoming. So we'll see. And of course, Andy Everett, we talk all things sports with Andy. Andy's covered the Cowboys and Jerry Jones for many years as well. But a major development yesterday, Shannon, in the NFL, and I think it maybe would have been the biggest NFL story this morning if the Jerry Jones story didn't break. Carson Wentz, who Frank Reich, and I was a big fan of the Hard Knocks in-season show about the Indianapolis Colts. Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator at Philadelphia when they went to that Super Bowl and Nick Foles led them to the Super Bowl and Carson Wentz was injured. Frank Reich was a Carson Wentz believer, but after 1 year, the Indianapolis Colts gave up on Carson Wentz. and now have made a deal with the Washington Commanders. The Commanders will now have Carson Wentz as their quarterback. And Shannon, as a Cowboys fan, I don't want to get too cocky, but my first thoughts were, thank you, Washington. This is 2 relatively easier wins per season for the Dallas Cowboys. Your thoughts on that deal?
Yeah, I have an analogy. I don't know that we have enough time for it to finish off this segment, but we can maybe get to it when we come back. But my first thought, like you as a Cowboys fan, was, okay, how does this affect me? And also, I just remember when he was leading the Eagles, Carson Wentz, it was always this who's better of that draft class and of the two, Dak versus Carson. I don't think you can have that comparison any longer. The second he left the Eagles, I think you had to throw that out the window. But now that he's back in the NFC East, you just know that the Carson lovers and Washington will want to press that narrative. I don't think it's I don't think it's valid anymore. Just given like the belief that the Cowboys have, and clearly the disbelief that I think a lot of teams now in the NFL have of Carson Wentz. And also it feels like Washington was settling in this, right? I mean, we still have a draft to go through. There's still some other quarterbacks, roaming out there. Fitzpatrick, right? Was he going to re-sign with Washington? He always seems to find a way to get a starting gig throughout the season at some point, whether or not he keeps it or not, or whether it's an injury issue. But it just feels like Washington is relying maybe more on their defense for this next season, and saying we just need somebody who can move the ball down the field and maybe not turn it over too much, because this doesn't seem like, especially for a team who's just rebranded and is changing their name and saying going forward, we are the Commanders. This does not feel like the sergeant that you would want leading said Commanders.
Yeah, and I mentioned Frank Reich, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, really liked Carson Wentz and had a relationship with him that went back to, before he was drafted. Reich met him in college and interviewed him before the draft with the Eagles. But it was the general manager of the Indianapolis Colts, Chris Ballard, who, after that season ended, and all the Colts had to do was win one of their last 2 games. One was against the Raiders. Last game was at Jacksonville, which, most people think you should have won that. However, your Buffalo Bills also lost at Jacksonville, so it happens. But I mean, he's been saying ever since the season ended, I just don't know if Carson Wentz is our quarterback moving forward. I don't know if he can take us to where we want to be. When he started saying that publicly, to me, it was like, you're gone. I mean, that is a total vote of no confidence. You can't come back from that and say, after a 1-year audition, I don't know if he's the guy. And like, oh, okay, yeah, well, okay, let's keep going with Carson Wentz. I kind of saw, and I'm sure Carson Wentz probably did, the writing on the wall. Lucinda Sullivan, our resident Indianapolis Colts fan, says 2022 will be our year. Go Colts. We'll see who your quarterback is. I mean, that was supposed to be a pretty good team. They got one of the best running backs, maybe the best running back. Yep. Hey, I like it. Sam Ehlinger inherits that job if they don't find another quarterback to take the reins. Very nice. Little Billie Jean on the way out. Jerry Jones, if you're listening, Jeremy KOLOK dedicates that song to you. Let's talk more NFL. Let's talk NBA. College hoops heating up as well. So much going on. And, of course, you can't escape the Jerry Jones scandal this morning. Back into that as well. Till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Lucinda Sullivan, very confident. Good morning, Jesse Bratton. Let's see, who's in here? Tracy Bogert, Sam Tobias, Anthony Del Toro, Beth Settle, Taro Kotani. Taro, amazing what you've been able to do on this trip. I've told Taro, and if you're just tuning in after the game last night, he stayed at the AT&T Center and hung out down on the floor with Keldon Johnson's family until Keldon came out to hang out with his family and Taro and took photos. I've told Taro he's had experiences on this trip that no Spur has. So. All right. Jason Paniagua, welcome. Yeah, Jason, I saw you post that message about winning Bob Dylan tickets. How cool is that? How iconic of a star, as I wear my Beatles shirt on Throwback Thursday, how iconic of a star is Bob Dylan? That is so amazing. Mike Brown, good morning, Mike. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to get some coffee. I fill up, because God knows I need a lot of caffeine. I fill up my coffee Strato tanker in the morning. And last night was a Spurs game, so I am extra surprised. Well, I'm going to be guzzling the coffee today. All right. Jason, that's crazy. Jason Paniagua has won tickets from Ticket 760, which makes sense, to see Eric Clapton last year and Bob Dylan this year. How cool is that? And you wonder with Jerry Jones, you know, he obviously, I think, would want this thing to go away. He did 25 years ago.
It's NyQuil Severe gives you powerful relief from your worst cold and flu symptoms.
I just wonder, he's got so much money. And everybody has their price.
Into a night
I just wonder if at one point he just says to Alexandra Davis,
Severe. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, sore throat, stuffy head, aching, fever, best sleep with a cold.
Filing this lawsuit.
Use this direct.
What will it take for you to, not talk about this in public anymore? And I would imagine, no NFL franchise makes more money than the Cowboys. I would imagine there is a number that would satisfy her and that Jerry could afford to purchase her silence. What a crazy story. And then a lot of people were posting those photos of Jerry Jones from about that era. Jerry was once, there were these photographs. There were two women in a hotel room that Jerry was very friendly with, hugging them, his hands being put in strategic places on these women's bodies. So, very interesting. Tomas Rangel, good morning. Sam Tobias says, I wonder what the rest of the Jones family is thinking right now with the daddy scandal. I think they're thinking about money. I think they're thinking, how much does this cost us? Because Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones Jr. and Charlotte married somebody else. I don't know what her name is right now. I follow her on Twitter. What is Charlotte Jones' married name? I can't find her now. Charlotte Jones, but she's got a married name. What is it? Charlotte Jones. She's 55. Hey, Charlotte, you got a 25-year-old sister. Charlotte went to Stanford. Charlotte has 2 kids, Haley and Paxton. Her married name is Anderson, so she's Charlotte Jones Anderson. All right. Manuel Gonzalez, there you go, Manuel. You got it. You got it before I did. Charlotte Jones Anderson. Michelle Johnson joins us from Marysville, Kansas. Welcoming my birth state into the house. I was born in Salina, Kansas. My dad was in the Air Force. It was Schilling Air Force Base in Salina, Kansas, where my dad was in 1960 when the Cowboys were born. He was flying B-47s in the Strategic Air Command. I've never been back to Salina, Kansas. I got to go back sometime. I don't think I've ever been in the state of Kansas since I was 1 and my family moved. I got to go back. You would think I'd be a Kansas fan or a Kansas State fan, but no. Yeah, Sam, you got it as well. Okay, now you all know that. What was the name of the YouTube Spurs parody? YouTube. I'm going to Google it. It was It was so darn funny. Popovich. Popovich Tim Duncan parody. No, I guess I got to put cartoon. Cartoon. Gosh, it was so good.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
Showing up.
You know the day destroys the
Very
night.
good.
Night divides the
Here we
day.
go.
Try to run, try
Got to go mute here for our evil overlords. Oh my goodness gracious. What a morning in the world of sports. And it is everywhere. Sports talk radio, nationally and locally. Sports television, nationally and globally. All over the internets, plural, as former President George W. Bush used to say. Jerry Jones and this scandal, we've talked about it. We'll talk more about it. We won't completely dwell on it, but it is huge. I mean, anything Dallas Cowboys is huge. Now you've got a Dallas Cowboys scandal involving Jerry Jones that is huge. And the fact, I said this to Shannon earlier in the 6 o'clock hour, the fact that it was reported by the Dallas Morning News, not Adam Schefter or even, the Dallas Morning News is, if not the newspaper of record in Dallas, certainly one of the newspapers of record in Dallas. I am sure that the Dallas Morning News is delivered to the Jerry Jones estate every morning. And so they do real journalism there. They check their facts. They check their sources. They double and triple check. And before this court document was sealed yesterday, they had it. They had a hold of it. And apparently there will be, according to the Dallas Morning News, a court proceeding was scheduled for March 31st, which is 3 weeks from today, Shannon. That was to be opening day of baseball. Oh, by the way, and we'll get to all the other sports stories as well. Major League Baseball yesterday canceled even more games. So while there was some hope for Major League Baseball, now there's not a lot of hope for Major League Baseball. But Shannon, it's going to be fascinating. And again, we continue to say, if true, based on what we're hearing, and you add in this reality show that her mother was a part of, Big Rich Texas, and in the reality show, her mother, who had all this money, said she was living off of a trust fund. So, based on the reality show, her mother had all this money. For Alexandra Davis to make all this up now would be very unusual. And the fact that she's a congressional aide. She works in D.C. for a United States congressman out of the state of Texas. So, she doesn't seem to be some floozy, Shannon. She seems to be a credible person. You add it all together, and I, at least at the moment, and again, we don't know until there's evidence. At the moment, I tend to believe it. And if that's true, Shannon, I'm going to be fascinated. What does Jerry Jones do? Because Jerry can't be happy with this. Jerry's wife can't be happy with this. This is not good publicity. And no sports franchise makes more money than the Cowboys. It would seem to me Jerry's best chance to make this not go away, but go quiet, and to make this woman go quiet is pay her whatever money she wants. It'll be interesting to see if that happens.
And depending on what her political aspirations are, it may not go quiet, and not because she's out there, doing anything. Like we said, she's got a Twitter account. She's not tweeting anything. She only retweets, looks like, people she works with or for. So it's not like she's taken to her Twitter and is defending herself or slamming Jerry or anybody Cowboys related. But what if she wanted to run for office? It's not cheap. And when you are a politician, especially in this day and age, they've become celebrity-like in that they are in the news, good, bad, or ugly. And having that association with Jerry Jones is only going to make her star shine brighter, whether he likes it or not. So I don't know of a way that he truly makes this go away. I don't know if we're gonna have some sort of movie-like ending where after 25 years they come together and he's the best father that she could ever ask for, and it's not Steven who's gonna take over the Dallas Cowboys. It's Alexandra here, and changes her name from Davis to Jones. The end game here is there. I feel like there's a lot of ways that this could go. So far, obviously Jerry has yet to say anything. He probably shouldn't on his own. We know Jerry getting on a phone call with local radio stations or dealing with reporters when there's no one there to filter him does not always end in his favor. And with something like this, he has to be very careful in what he does and at the same time does not say.
See, and Shannon, if you connect the dots now, last week at the Combine, I heard so many national reporters say, and there was word that Jerry Jones, had some minor physical illness he needed to address. And a lot of people thought, and you alluded to this, that it was because of the cheerleader settlement. And again, the guy who was involved in the cheerleader issue, Rich Dalrymple, Cowboys executive, and he was in charge of communications. If you wanted to talk to Tony Romo or any Cowboy, you had to go through Rich Dalrymple. I'll never forget when the Cowboys were at the Alamo Dome for training camp. Rich Dalrymple came out with Tony Romo on a golf cart, and Tony sat on back of the golf cart. And you can only have as much access to Tony Romo or any Cowboy as Rich Dalrymple would give you. And so all these reporters are gathering around Tony. I was one of them, asking Tony Romo questions on the field at the Alamo Dome. And Rich Dalrymple gave them 10 minutes. And at the end of 10 minutes, Rich Dalrymple was at the wheel of the golf cart and just started driving into the tunnel. And all of these desperate reporters, kind of lame, were like chasing after Tony Romo. And, well, one more question, Tony. What about? And it was just ridiculous. But Rich Dalrymple was a big deal. If you look at a lot of these NFL Films documentaries about the Cowboys' Super Bowl winning seasons in the Jimmy Johnson era, one of the go-to guys they interview is Rich Dalrymple. I mean, he was a big deal. So the thought was, the reason Jerry doesn't want to talk is it's so embarrassing that the Cowboys gave this multi-million-dollar settlement. It was actually $2.4 million to 4 cheerleaders. And the allegations were that Rich Dalrymple filmed them as they changed clothes in their locker room. Not cool, not a good look, pretty despicable. But now, Shannon, you've got to wonder if Jerry Jones, not only that, but last week during the Combine, if Jerry Jones was aware of this lawsuit, and I'll bet you he was, and he knew that the bombshell was about to explode, and he didn't know what day it was going to explode. And I'm sure, if the Dallas Morning News is tracking this down, they're calling Jerry asking for comments. So, I mean, the fact that this story hit yesterday from the Dallas Morning News, while they were researching it, Jerry must have known days before. We don't know how many days before, but he must have known days before the Dallas Morning News was investigating this, that this lawsuit was filed, and that what was about to hit the fan.
Oh, for sure. Jerry's been so intertwined with the Dallas area and Dallas media and has had many front page stories throughout his time there as part of the Dallas Morning News. So I'm sure at the very least he got a courtesy call from someone. And, like we said, he's got to be managed as far as what he says and when he says it. And I'm sure someone was like, listen, the Combine, I know you love going there because it's a giant party for the rich folk like you, but we're not going this year.
Yeah, my goodness. By the way, and backing up to something we brought up in the 6 o'clock hour, thanks to Jason Paniagua who found it on YouTube, Shannon, and go ahead and look at it after the show. And for everybody else, the Spurs parody was called Spurs Special Forces. And I'll tweet that out. It's hilarious. There's a few of them, but it's Greg Popovich, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. And they are it's a cartoon. They're a special elite paramilitary unit. And the whole basketball thing that they do in real life is just a front for their special forces operations. So anyway, there's that. So just to pick up on that. Anyway, we will continue to react to the Jerry Jones story. Shannon, back to the Carson Wentz story. And again, I was a big fan of Hard Knocks and I watched every episode, and on a certain level, I pull for Carson Wentz because you just look at his story, came from a smaller college, came in highly touted. I didn't like, and you point out, and it'll be interesting this year once again, that there were the Dak Prescott comparisons. Who's a better quarterback, Dak Prescott or Carson Wentz? For a couple of years, that was a thing, and that clearly is no longer a thing. It'll be interesting if it's still in the back of Dak Prescott's mind anytime he faces Carson Wentz. But, I was watching that series, and I know you watched it as well. And then, like in episode one, Carson Wentz's wife is pregnant and they have a baby and they already had other kids. He's by all accounts a good man. He's very religious. And that's part of how Frank Reich and Carson Wentz first connected when they first met in college. Frank Reich gave him a Bible verse that he thought was one of my favorite Bible verses. And Carson Wentz said, "Hey man, I've got like a wristband that I wear with that Bible verse every day." So they connected on a spiritual level. Now, part of Carson Wentz, apparently he said religious beliefs kept him from getting vaccinated during the pandemic, and that had some issues for the Colts. And he did indeed come down with COVID during the regular season. But I don't know. And I'm guessing the Washington Commanders, who acquired him yesterday, I'm guessing, they had a wish list. And I know there was some Russell Wilson talk. That was like the biggest. I mean, their biggest, it was like, wow, what if we can get Aaron Rodgers? That was a long shot, but possible. What if we could get Russell Wilson? That's what they were really, really hoping for. And as the quarterback dominoes began to fall, I think with all the Daniel Snyder issues, you don't want to go for Deshaun Watson. So maybe the born again Christian quarterback Carson Wentz is now a good idea for a Washington football team that has its own scandalous issues as well.
Yeah, I don't think Carson Wentz, not to say that he doesn't deserve a second or even third chance, right? He hasn't done anything wrong. He just kind of fell in line of this path with these injuries and, the COVID situation. I knew we would be talking about this today, Chris. And so in my drive-in, I was thinking of a way to get my feelings across about Carson Wentz and the type of career he's had and the jumping from one team where he was, dead set on being the MVP of the league to that team winning a Super Bowl and him not being the one in the photos holding up the trophy, to him not being the one that the statue is made of, to ultimately going to another team and not even lasting more than a year, to now being back in the NFC least and playing for Washington, who has their own set of problems that he is now going to have to deal with. And this comparison with Dak, and all I could think about was mac and cheese, Chris, which is a household staple. As we know, I was in Vegas a couple weekends ago, and Saturday morning went to this incredible buffet. Amazing. You pay ahead of time, and then you get like 2 hours at your table, and there is so much to choose from. You don't want to waste any stomach space on anything that's not worth having. But you make that first run to the buffet and you are grabbing as much as your hands can hold. And something I grabbed on my first run to the buffet was a gorgeous looking mac and cheese dish. Okay. And mac and cheese, wow. We can have Kraft mac and cheese that's 99 cents a box, all the way to a steakhouse mac and cheese that's $18 for a side. Okay, I don't care. It's either good or it isn't. And I see this mac and cheese at the buffet, and it is in its own little cast iron red little pot. And I bring it back to my table, and I'm like, that looks so good. It's shells, by the way, not elbows. And I'm eating other things on my plate because, like I said, first run at the buffet, it was a huge plate. But I'm excited to get to this mac and cheese. I've selected it amongst all the other choices. Think NFL draft style, right? I've made my selections. I'm going through the lineup. I finally get to the mac and cheese, Chris, and I take a bite, and I'm like, that's different. Take another bite. Okay. I mean, it works out. But then as I'm eating it, I'm like, do I really want to continue down this road? Do I want to fill the stomach? I still have more buffet to get to. I've got 2 hours here, but I only have so much stomach space. So I say, you know what? It's not really for me. It's not working out in the way, I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to send this mac and cheese over to the side of the table to the Colts and see what happens. Now I'm with 2 other people, Chris, and they too have noticed the mac and cheese, but they did not make it to that area of the buffet. They had not tried it yet. I clearly had some left over. So now my sloppy seconds become a friend of mine's, and she tastes them, and she is immediately like, you know what? I'm lactose. I shouldn't have had a bite anyway. Not for me. So those sloppy seconds are now thirds, Chris. And we've got a lot of other options out there on the table of things that other people have tried, and we're willing to keep trying it, right? My other friend, my third friend that's there with us, she said, you know what? I want to try the mac and cheese. But it didn't go well with her either. And to me, that's Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is the mac and cheese, okay? He started out as a hot item. But after some time, we realized that he really wasn't the hot item that everyone thought he would be. He made the jump to somebody else who thought that they could change him. They could enjoy him and benefit from him in the way that others couldn't. But it wasn't meant to be. And now he's a side dish sitting on the edge of the table, just waiting for the waiter to come by and pick him up to see if there's any final resting place for this mac and cheese Carson Wentz of a dish. And that is where I stand with one Carson Wentz. I don't think that he lasts very terribly long in Washington. That doesn't mean he doesn't stay on the roster, but I think his time as a starter and as a guy who we once held in such high regard is just no more. It's no more. Carson Wentz, you're mac and cheese, and you're not the good kind. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're not the you're not the Mac Jones kind, who some people say his nickname should be Mac and Cheese. What an analogy. And I just think if you're Carson Wentz, and I don't expect it to go well in Washington. I actually, as a Cowboys fan, I don't want it to. I don't want that team to ever do well because I don't like them. They're division rivals, and now under Daniel Snyder, I really don't like them. But for Carson Wentz, you look at his career, and it looked so good so early. And he did early on. He was lighting it up. And then that Super Bowl year for the Philadelphia Eagles, he's doing great. Most people believe had he not been injured, he probably would have been the guy to lead that Eagles team to the Super Bowl. Would you have beaten Brady with the Philly special? I don't know. I think magical forces came together in that Super Bowl, and one of those was Nick Foles. It was his day of destiny. But to be that close to going to a Super Bowl and achieving as a quarterback Super Bowl immortality, to then falling off. You mentioned the biggest indignity was the statue of Nick Foles in front of Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. And that dude was your backup and your replacement. He's the guy that took him to the Super Bowl. You go to Indianapolis with the one guy who loves you and believes in you, and the guy who led that offense and Nick Foles to a Super Bowl championship, Frank Reich. And you get a year with Frank Reich and the Indianapolis Colts, and it goes bad. And in addition to your having to make a decision on being vaccinated, you made the controversial decision not to be, and then you got COVID, so you were out for a while. So a lot of things did not go. Plus, it was all documented on HBO's Hard Knocks. Then you go to the Washington football team owned by Daniel Snyder. Granted, a lot of people look at that team now with Ron Rivera as head coach, with a lot of talented personnel on the roster. But I think most of us, you don't think it's going to go well there for Carson Wentz. I don't. I don't think there's a lot of people out there who are optimistic about how it's going to go for Carson Wentz. Just on a personal level, Shannon, I just think it's a kind of a tragic fall from what seemed to be a trajectory for greatness and at least one and maybe multiple Super Bowl championships for Carson Wentz. It can't be very pretty for that guy at this point, and maybe down the line as well.
If I'm a quarterback in the league, I'm really hoping that my team is not selected for in-season Hard Knocks, because so far they are 0-1.
It doesn't go well. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Coming up. Oh, I do want one more quick thing before we go to break. And coming up, the Salty Shakedown, sports history, sports birthdays a little bit later in the show. James Allen, a fellow board member with Jerry Jones on the Pro Football Hall of Fame, his thoughts on this scandal. Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics, going to join us. You brought up Kyler Murray yesterday, and I have since heard, and you alluded to this, and when he washed his social media clean of any photos or references to the Arizona Cardinals, that included 371 posts on Instagram that he took down. And then, as you mentioned yesterday, suddenly they reappeared. I have since heard to do that, you've got to very carefully archive all of those posts. You have to take them down, put them somewhere else on another server and copy them. Then you've got to repost all 371 individually on Instagram. Yeah, he probably has somebody doing his social media, Shannon, but that's a little crazy. And that's a little involved for Kyler Murray to pout and make the statement he made, apparently, on, I'm no longer down with my team, the Arizona Cardinals.
Listen, the other quarterbacks around the league need to take notes from the likes of Kyler Murray and Aaron Rodgers. All right, they got to step the pettiness game up because they're taking it to new heights.
Yes. Yeah, you're petty, but you're not Aaron Rodgers petty. Thank goodness. And you're not Tom Petty. That would be a cool petty, but you're not the right kind of petty. Thank goodness Dak isn't doing this. Dak's got his brother, but brother's nothing like Patrick Mahomes' brother, Jackson Mahomes. Well, we made it through 4 days this week without any Jackson Mahomes updates.
Well, I saw one yesterday, but I decided to let that one go. We needed a break.
All right. Poor Jackson Mahomes. Jerry Jones is going to get all the oxygen today, and Jackson's going to have to do some serious dancing today on TikTok to get back into the social consciousness. Coming up, it is Shannon's Salty Shakedown on a Throwback Thursday. We'll have sports history, sports birthdays, then a big 8 o'clock hour. James Allen from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We'll see how he answers it. He's a colleague on that board of the Pro Football Hall of Fame with Jerry Jones. He's a friend of Jerry Jones. He may say no comment. I don't think he'll say that, but he may. Andy Everett going to join us. And Jeremy KOLOK, there he goes, adding to our Jerry Jones Love Child playlist. This is from the Songs in the Key of Life album by Stevie Wonder called Isn't She Lovely? Jerry, isn't Alexandra Davis lovely? No, thank you, Jerry. We got a quick answer from Jerry on that one. Salty Shakedown coming up and a whole lot more. Don't go anywhere. We're with you till 9. More on the Jerry Jones scandal coming up on the Chris Duel Show. Woo! Woo! All right. I do believe I need to make a coffee run. All right. Let me. I was just messaging with Paul Alexander, and I'll mention this on the air as well. He's obviously heavily covering Richard Petty. Very nice, James Allen. And James, if you're listening, obviously, we have to ask you the questions about Jerry Jones, but I know, and I'm sensitive to the fact that he is a friend of yours and a colleague and a fellow board member. So, I'm sure you will, choose how you want to answer any questions about him. But we got to ask the questions. But we look forward to it, man. It's, we love having you on. Also, Paul Alexander, and I got to go check it out. Apparently, already all over this on radicallyrational.com. James Allen at the top of the hour. Paul Alexander tomorrow at 7:05. So let me go nuke my coffee, and I will be back. We'll give you some Jeremy KOLOK up close and personal. Back in a sec. Louisa, good morning. What is up? Let's give you a little bit of the man of the hour. There he is, Jerry Jones. Here we come. Whoa. That was quicker than I expected. Woo.
She my pride and joy. She my sweet little baby. I'm a little lover boy.
Nice. Very nice. Jeremy KOLOK all over it this morning. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. So much going on in the world of sports, but the banner story, the bombshell that dropped yesterday and is just building momentum is this Jerry Jones scandal, first reported by the Dallas Morning News. And I got to believe with so many people on this thing, so many angles, that we're going to learn a lot more today. But a 25-year-old woman is suing Jerry Jones. Court documents saying he is her father, that since her birth, he has been paying her mother. Her mother entered into an agreement after she was born in December of 1996 to remain silent. And apparently her mother, and apparently the 25-year-old woman who is now a congressional aide working in Washington, D.C. for a United States congressman from the great state of Texas. Apparently she has been well compensated as well, but wants apparently to take things further. So that's a huge story. We'll talk more about that with James Allen, who is on the board of the Pro Football Hall of Fame with Jerry Jones. He's a friend of Jerry Jones. And also our good friend, Paul Alexander, Coach A. I've been talking with him throughout the show during the breaks on social media. He's got huge coverage on his website today, radicallyrational.com. Go check out his sports blog. Go check out his video. And as always, Paul Alexander will join us tomorrow at 7:05 a.m. My goodness, Paul, a Dallas Cowboys historian and analyst. And on good days, he's not been the biggest fan of Jerry Jones. I got a feeling Paul Alexander will be unleashed and maybe even unhinged tomorrow morning when he joins us at 7:05. Also, in the 8 o'clock hour, in addition to James Allen, Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics. Andy has covered the Cowboys and Jerry Jones as well. So we'll get his thoughts on UTSA. Their basketball season ended a couple of nights ago. Big developments in golf. In fact, in the Salty Shakedown here in a moment, maybe one of the biggest developments this week in golf will be alluded to. We will get into all of that, but first, let's get this party started with sports birthdays. And this day in sports history. On this day in 1963, March 10th, 1963, John Kennedy was president. And in spring training in Tampa, Florida, the Cincinnati Reds debuted a rookie, got his first at-bats for the Reds. His name was Pete Rose. He was an infielder. He got a hit in each of his first two at-bats that day, and things would turn out well for the Reds and Pete Rose for many, many years until they got a little sideways. Also on this same day in 1963, San Francisco Warriors center Wilt Chamberlain scored 70 points in a 163-148 defeat of the Syracuse Nationals at the Onondaga War Memorial. My goodness. Finally, on this day in 1985, Dallas Mavericks head coach Dick Motta became the fourth NBA coach to win 700 games. Somewhere Greg Popovich said, hold my beer. Pop is now at 1335 in the regular season. A lot more than that if you can include playoffs. That's your sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1946, Hall of Fame defensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, Curly Culp. He was first-team All-Pro in 1975. He was NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 1975. He also played for the Houston Oilers in addition to the Kansas City Chiefs. Curly Culp was born in Yuma, Arizona. Sadly, he passed away last year in 2021. Born on this day in 1961, one of the better sideline reporters ever, sports journalist and sportscaster Pam Oliver was born in Dallas, Texas on this day in 1961. Born on this day in 1965, NFL cornerback, 11-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion with the Ravens, Rod Woodson. Steelers and Ravens for Rod Woodson, born in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And finally, born on this day in 1977, American Olympic gymnast. She was big in the Olympics. She won 2 Olympic golds, 2 Olympic silvers, and 3 Olympic bronze medals in the 1992 and 1996 Olympics. Shannon Miller was born this day in 1977 in Rolla, Missouri. Those are your sports birthdays. That's your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, farm animals, pole assassins, and monkeys, here it is, your Throwback Thursday Salty Shakedown.
Well, you alluded to it, Chris, with some golf news. We're going to go ahead and start there with Tiger Woods, who we announced yesterday would be inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame, and he would be inducted by his daughter, Sam, who gave a great speech. She was, I think, maybe the highlight of the night, even more so than Tiger Woods being there himself to accept that induction. He cried happy tears as she was giving her speech. She looked beautiful. She did a fantastic job. And Chris, I want you to listen to this clip here, because anytime you have a family member or close friend speaking about you in front of the public, I think you always have to worry that maybe they'll say something or reveal something about you that people don't already know, and whether or not you want that to be known. And I think that was done by Sam last night, and I wanted to get your take on what we now know about Mr. Tiger Woods.
His continual presence has been a significant pattern throughout our relationship. Whether it's on FaceTime or school pickup or violin concerts or when we fail to teach our dogs tricks, he's always there. And it's been at the soccer fields and golf tournaments over the years that Charlie and I have begun to realize how famous he actually is. I mean, how can a guy who still FaceTimes his friends to discuss Marvel and DC timelines and who goes to Comic-Con dressed as Batman be one of the greatest golfers that ever lived?
Chris, celebrities, they're just like us. They're super famous, yet still go to all of their kids' events, which is what's great to hear. But that ending there, who knew Tiger, a Marvel and DC fan, so much so that he'll discuss it with his friends via FaceTime, but also that he goes to Comic-Con. And a lot of celebrities who do go to Comic-Con just to enjoy it do end up dressing up, because A, that's the thing to do at Comic-Con, but B, it also does allow them to walk around in some sort of, they're incognito. No one knows they're there. But I have to imagine, and I'm sure you've seen them, a lot of people have that Iron Man suit that looks like it's straight from the movies. I got to imagine that he didn't go to Target and buy the Halloween version that's like a little, onesie jumpsuit. That if he was walking around as Batman at Comic-Con, that he would look like a Batman from the movie. Now, if you were at Comic-Con and somehow you knew that was Tiger Woods in a Batman costume, would you ruin his day? to go say hi to Tiger Woods, or would you let him live on as the Bruce Wayne he's trying to be in disguise?
As an older adult now, I would let him live and let live. Clearly, he wants the anonymity, and clearly he's geeking out at Comic-Con, dressing up as Batman. Let the man have his day and do it the way he planned on it. When I was younger, maybe 25, I would, Tiger! It's Tiger Woods! So, no. So, yeah, there's two versions of me. There's the younger, dumber version, and there's the older, still dumb, but not as dumb and not as rude version. So I would let him be. But I love it. Tiger Woods dressed up as Batman at Comic-Con. We'll have to ask Andy Everett if he's ever dressed up at Comic-Con. Maybe, as Katy Perry. Maybe. We'll find out.
It was a long shot, but Tiger Woods, congratulations on your induction into the World Golf Hall of Fame. All right, Chris. Mascots have made a lot of headlines this year, specifically in the NBA, right? We had the Toronto Raptor who was messing with Devin Booker while he was shooting free throws. So he got kind of put in timeout. He got put in a corner while Devin Booker finished his free throws. We then had the Coyote doing a little taunting himself, but there were no real punishments that came of this. But soccer, as we know, it's a huge world sport, and other countries take it a little bit more seriously than we do here in America at times. And one of those countries being Brazil, they're usually known for their national team, but they do have professional teams there in that country, and their mascots take it so seriously, Chris. So seriously that a mascot has now been suspended for its on-field actions. Brazilian teams Alteco and Cruzeiro were tied at 0-0 until the 70th minute when a Cruzeiro player scored, and the score quickly turned to 0-1. Well, that mascot was behind the goal when this happened, and the mascot for Alteco is Galdo Doido, which apparently translates to Crazy Rooster. I apologize for anyone who's like, she is just annihilating these words, but I gotta go with what I've got in front of me. So the Crazy Rooster sees the goal, sees that the player and teammates are going to celebrate the goal. He runs as fast as he can in his rooster get up to block the players themselves, just to kind of, just literally block, just be in the way of them celebrating together. Ultimately, the Atletico team, the Crazy Roosters team, did win the game 2-1. They ended up coming back. So he got the win there, but ultimately suffered an L because of his, quote, intimidating run towards the opponent. He has been suspended 1 game, Chris. Do you think he deserves it? His name is Crazy Rooster. He even took to Twitter later to say, to what loosely translates to, in my home, I bite. And bite he did, because they got the win, but he also ends up with a suspension.
I kind of like it, Shannon. He did not disrupt play. He didn't run out in the middle of action. It was in the celebration, and obviously he could have gotten his butt kicked in that moment. And after he did it, Shannon, as you report, his team came back to win. So perhaps the antics and the courage of the Crazy Rooster fired his team up, and they came back to win. So I am down with the Crazy Rooster on this. He should not be suspended, but even though he is, it should be a badge of honor. He should. I'm gonna have to go. Earlier today, I followed the Jerry Jones accuser on Twitter. Now Alexandra Davis. Now I'm gonna go follow the Crazy Rooster. Who knew before this show I'd be following Alexandra Davis and the Crazy Rooster on Twitter? But that's just how the show's going this morning. Again,
for apologies for my poor butchering of just words. It's common for me, but that I just felt like that story should be shared, as mascots going rogue has been a theme of this sports year so far. All right, finally today, Chris. I enjoy my night wine, and I enjoy my night wine most nights with, so I will just call it subpar television, right? They're not getting any awards anywhere. They're not ones filled with great actors, and most of the time it's reality TV. Let's be honest. We all know I enjoy Below Deck, but last night, after watching Below Deck, I still had some time to kill, and I found a brand new show that just premiered this week on the A&E network called Deep Fried Dynasty, which in and of itself, sounds very Texan, but even more so because it takes place at the State Fair of Texas. It's all about the people who fry food at Texas and the number of booths that they own and what they sell and how much tickets they bring in each day. And at the end of each episode, they go and they weigh the box that they have, that they put all of the tickets in. Because for those that have not been to the state fair, Chris, I know you're one of them. The way it works
someday, this is the year I'm going,
is that
go ahead.
you pay cash money to then receive tickets. And, back in my day, one ticket equaled 50 cents, but now one ticket equals $1. And so you go to these booths and they're offering things like fried tamales, or people love a good turkey leg, or fried PB&J. I mean, anything fried really that you can think of, you can find it at the Texas State Fair, and you trade your tickets in for said item. For note, the fried turkey leg, 18 tickets, $18 for a fried turkey leg. It must be pretty good. I have yet to have one, but this show now makes me want to try it. Chris, if any of this sounds interesting to you, if you just like looking at food, if you like food shows, I highly suggest it just to check it out, to see what it's all about, to maybe get the lay of the land before the next fair season. And I just didn't realize, Chris, we see these booths at things other than fairs, right? They occur everywhere. But I didn't realize how much money they really ranked in. I mean, some of these people have goals of $2 million for a fair that lasts 24 days. And they're like, yeah, I have to make $80,000 a day from things like turkey legs. I didn't know. I mean, do we need to stop what we're doing right now and go run a fried food booth at the state fair? Because apparently you can make some bank doing that. Chris?
I had no idea. Wow, no, and I want this to be the year, Shannon. There's a lot of things I haven't done that I want to do. Go to Graceland, go to the state fair, go to Texas OU, go to Texas UTSA. I want to. I got to watch Deep Fried Dynasty. I'm going to school myself on everything deep fried at the Texas State Fair.Id you say that's on A&E? Where do we find this show?
Yes, A&E Network. There are 2 episodes
okay.
out now, and it was recorded this year. So this was, there was not a fair the previous year due to COVID. So I think everyone was super excited to just be back, and then obviously consumers excited to get their hands on some fried food that you can only find at the State Fair of Texas. There's interestingly a lot of drama on this show, even though it's about folks who just sit there and fry food. So if you're needing some subpar television to watch later in the evening, I highly suggest it. There it is. Today's Salty Shakedown.
My goodness, what a tremendous Salty Shakedown. And I had no idea you can make $2 million over the course of the state fair selling deep fried foods. Yeah, we do need to expand our horizons and maybe diversify into other businesses. All right. I have no idea how James Allen, colleague of Jerry Jones on the board at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, how he will respond to our line of questioning about this Jerry Jones scandal. But James Allen has always been forthcoming with us. We shall see. We'll talk all things football and more with James Allen next. A little bit later, Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics. Jeremy KOLOK makes the show go. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. More on the NFL and more on the Jerry Jones scandal, which is blowing up, coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Keep it right here on the Chris Duel. Woo! Jerry Jones, the man of the hour. All right, I think I'm going to make another coffee run. This one might be it. I might curtail my coffee consumption after this one. Coming up, James Allen from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Always an outstanding guest. Coffee. Especially after a Spurs game. I needs me some coffee. It's the wonder drug that works wonders. Caffeine. Thank you, Lord. Back in a sec.
Now may be the perfect time to buy a home financed by Loan Depot. Loan Depot has over 300 loan
Woo!
Make home ownership a reality. Interest rates are near historic lows. Rates will not stay low forever. So call 866-888-LOAN so one of our thousands of loan officers can help you find
Axel J. Miller, welcome in.
Visit LoanDepot.com.
From Denver, Colorado, 3 degrees. Axel, it's going to get to 73 today in San Antonio.
Some other car insurance companies are increasing their rates in your state. But don't worry, your bill's gone up. Switch to State Farm for surprisingly great rates. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or StateFarm.com for a quote today.
All right. Let's see. Louisa says good morning to James Allen. Fred Robert Casares Jr. says good morning to everybody. What ugly news on Jerry Jones. Yeah, and this, one of the many things that's going to be so fascinating is Jerry is so image conscious. How's he going to react to this? Now, granted, he's got billions. You can lawyer up and try to really go after somebody. You know, I guess you could counter sue, but I don't know, man. 19 will be the high in Denver today for Axel J. Miller and company. Yeah, Axel, I lived, as you know, I think you know, I was at the Air Force Academy from 79 to 81. So I lived in Colorado. Those winters were so cold. And I never knew till growing up in San Antonio, the snow, snowflakes. And Charlie Brown Christmas, it must be, snow hurts. I'd be marching to class, and the snow would blow it would like sting my face. Snow would blow into my eyes and sting my eyes. And I remember saying to myself, when I get out of here, I am living in the Sun Belt for the rest of my life. Texas, California, Florida, I don't care. There is no reason to live in snow country if you don't have, and I am the biggest wimp. When the weather gets below 72 degrees, I'm in hell. Only I wish I were in hell, because hell would be a lot warmer than cold weather. So today, depending on what reports you're seeing in the San Antonio area, it's going to get between 73 and 75 degrees. So I am going to seek a pool this afternoon and an adult beverage or 3 or 4, maybe 5, 6. That would be excessive, wouldn't it? I don't want to be excessive. I mean, you know. Yeah, and it's been unseasonably cool here, Axel. So I am ready for spring, man. I have had enough of this winter thing. No, thank you. Here comes James Allen. Jeremy has him on the line. He is on the line with us. I'm going to have to mute here for a moment for our evil overlords.
Run, try to hide, break on to the other side.
James Allen in a sec.
Now, Chris Duel.
What a day in the world of sports. What a bombshell of a story reported first by the Dallas Morning News that a 25-year-old woman is suing Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, saying that he is her father And since her birth, he has been in an agreement with her mother to pay her significant money, apparently, to keep quiet about this. And again, innocent until proven guilty, or a paternity, understanding. We'll see. But it's a fascinating story on so many levels. And the fact that it was reported by the Dallas Morning News, and the fact that the woman filing the suit, Alexandra Davis, now works for a United States congressman in Washington, D.C., a congressman from Texas. There's just so many layers to this story, and a lot of other stuff going on this week in the NFL. We will get to all of that with James Allen, from Aaron Rodgers to Russell Wilson to Carson Wentz. We love talking football with James Allen from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. A Texas Aggie, played football at Texas A&M, and now is just so connected to NFL Hall of Famers, owners, and current players and staff members in the NFL. James Allen, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We are good. And James Allen, I used to watch 60 Minutes with Mike Wallace, among others, every Sunday on CBS. And Mike Wallace would fire the toughest question out of the gate. And I've been telling our listeners and our viewers all morning, we understand Jerry Jones is a fellow board member with you on the board of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He is a friend of yours. So we're absolutely aware of that, and we're sensitive to that, but just got to get your reaction and your thoughts as this bombshell Jerry Jones story broke yesterday, first in the Dallas Morning News. What were your thoughts yesterday, and what are your thoughts this morning?
Well, my immediate thoughts is to the Joneses family, his wife and his kids. I don't want to get on a sidetrack. I'm adopted. I tried to find my biological mother strictly for medical reasons, and she hired a big-time attorney. And even though the judge was going to rule in my favor, I decided not to do it because I thought about the embarrassment it had to suffer. So, it's not good, I'm sure, for the Jones family all of a sudden find out this is there. So that's my immediate thought. Obviously, the woman wants to be acknowledged that she's a Jones. I don't know if that's for status sake or money's sake, and that's really beyond the conversation. And, at the end of the day, there's a great saying, he with a person without, I guess to modify it in modern terms, if you're without sin, be the first one to stand up and say something. And, we had a president that was a great president with Bill Clinton. I mean, he did a good job trying to be a moderate in a lot of things. And it's, we're just humans. We have sins. It makes great fodder. But at the end of the day, there's families involved. There's stuff involved. Obviously, the lady's mother was involved, and even though she's well compensated, I'm sure that doesn't make up for so many emotional connection for her. But it sounds like this woman wants to be a Jones, or at least acknowledged as a Jones, and it's going to run its course. But at the end of the day, it's just we all make mistakes and have sins, and I really have, and I'm not saying that because I know Jerry and saw his wife, but I immediately think of the families on both sides of the situation and how it affects them. I don't want to go any further. The woman obviously wants to be a Jones. Does she think she's going to inherit some of the money, or maybe it's just a status to be a Jones, which it is. It's a huge status. I don't know what her end game is. But she's not some, ding dong person trying to shake them down. I don't think so. There's no win on either side. There's only losses, and hopefully it can repair itself. I was recently meeting with Gridiron Heroes, and they came out and we were sitting around a campfire, and a guy mentioned about Phil Robertson of Duck Dynasty, and came out and found out he had a child from back when he had a different kind of life. And they brought the child in, they loved on him and accepted him and made him part of the family. And it worked out great for everyone. So hopefully for the sake of this woman and her needs and the Jones family and their situations, they can work something out and just love each other, because time goes by too fast.
Well, James, it's kind of unfortunate right now. You know, there's so many big stories going on in the NFL, and when you look up Dallas Cowboys, there's stories that don't shed great light on personnel rather than things that are going on with the team itself. But some stories this week have been the likes of restructuring Dak's contract, DeMarcus Lawrence denying a pay cut, and then Dalton Schultz being placed under the franchise tag. What are your thoughts so far at the start of this Dallas Cowboys offseason and how they're making moves to better prepare for next year?
Well, you know, we said this before on the show, and again, not to be disingenuous to my friend Jerry Jones, but obviously he tried to out-negotiate the running back with Ezekiel and Dak, and ended up paying a lot more money. And the problem is that you're going to get yourself into a cap situation, and I've mentioned this before on the show, and now we're here because unfortunately this isn't the NBA where you can win with 2 or 3 people and you have 2 guys making a lot of money that could have been done a lot different, but it is what it is. So they're going to have to, Shannon, they're going to have to reschedule people and reallocate for the cap space to get more talent in there. And it's just the cards that you've dealt yourself financially. And however, at the same time, as I kind of alluded to on the show, after the Super Bowl win of the Rams, I kind of guessed, if y'all remember, that, you know, it's a herd mentality. And Stan Kroenke, the owner of and this is Walton, the owner of the Rams, went out and traded all tomorrows for today, and it worked for them. And now you have this. People went out and got Tom Brady. The Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, and you went out and you had Matthew Stafford. So you have this herd mentality, and all these people paying all this money for these quarterbacks are going to have to realize eventually, you know, your cap space is going to be an issue. So this is the problem you have to have on money management and trying to put a team together for locker room unity, or are you just trying to win now, and how much are you sacrificing for the future? And right now, notwithstanding Jerry's personal problems, but strictly on a football field, they've got to do a lot of restructuring because you're going to need a lot more talent. Because obviously Ezekiel and Dak and the offense can't just do it on 2 people alone.
James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. James, before my next question, I do want to just commend you on your first answer on the Jerry Jones question. I mean, you brought your own personal perspective on a situation where, you know, you wanted to, you know and better understand, you know, your birth mother. And then when you got to the final end of your answer, you know, saying it's all about love. Actually, if we could all just love one another more and love one another better. And you're so right that our life on this earth is so short. You know, I know that you know that personally as well. So that was just, I just, you know, we asked you that first question out of the gate, and I did not. Oh, I should have expected such a profound, philosophical, and meaningful answer. But so I just want to thank you for that first. But now back to a football question. You talk about personnel and all the money the Cowboys spent on Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. Something that happened when the Seattle Seahawks got rid of Russell Wilson, or at least you know, traded him to the Denver Broncos, that because Russell Wilson was such a big part of the story, it was less of a story that Bobby Wagner, a Pro Bowler, one of the linebackers on that Legion of Boom team, and a guy who arrived in Seattle with Russell Wilson back in 2012, he was also released by the Seattle Seahawks. James, there's a lot of talk now. Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks in that Legion of Boom era. He has called Bobby Wagner the best linebacker he's ever seen. In fact, last year, he was comparing Micah Parsons to Bobby Wagner. Do you think it would be a good idea if Bobby Wagner has more left in the tank, and I suspect he does, that Dan Quinn go to Jerry Jones and do whatever he can to convince Jerry to bring Dan Quinn to the Dallas Cowboys? Excuse me, bring Bobby Wagner to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, without over pontificating that, yes, you should. I'm a big fan of locker room. The Cowboys have not been really locker room drafters or picks. That's another story. However, Dan is forming his own locker room on the defensive side of the ball. Bobby Wagner is somebody that will be looked at for the Hall of Fame, given what I've seen. We saw what we did with Kroenke did with Eric Weddle, 37 years old, out 2 years, and played a heck of a game in the Super Bowl. Bobby Wagner is that kind of player, and Dan Quinn knows how he is, knows how to use him, and he's a veteran and can help the other people out. It makes sense. Obviously I'm not familiar with his physical stuff and everything else, but given everything I've seen, it's a great fit.
James, how surprised were you when Aaron Rodgers announced that he was staying with the Packers? And what are your thoughts on him then coming out and denying the reports that he's actually signed anything yet? He said, yes, I'm staying with the Packers, but no, I have not signed this contract that's going to be huge once he does officially put that pen to paper.
That's Aaron being Aaron. Like I've said, I've said this before, and again, he's a future. He's going to be wearing a gold jacket in the Hall of Fame, and but he doesn't have one yet. So I would just say that's Aaron. Aaron's on planet Aaron. Always has been, and always. You never know. I'm not trying to go to Forrest Gump box of chocolates with him. You never know what you're going to get. But Aaron, we definitely know what he's going to get. He's going to do it his way, and torpedoes be damn kind of person. So I was just kind of like, and that's Aaron being Aaron. As far as the Packers, what's going on there, I think Aaron's hoping for some last minute deal, maybe something else, but he does want to be the highest paid. He's not going to be a Brady or a Manning and say, hey, give the money to the team. He's not that kind of guy. Then that's fine. Hey, I mean, you should get, there's guys that run these companies in the United States making hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So I'm not demoting that at all. But that's just when Aaron says, I have the richest contract in NFL history, and I'm not sure, I haven't signed it yet. That's just Aaron being Aaron.
Well, and you bring up a great point as we talk with James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Famously, Tom Brady took less money so that the team around him could be built to be better in New England, and you could even argue even in Tampa Bay. Peyton Manning, the same. Here in San Antonio, David Robinson was known for doing that with the Spurs, as was Tim Duncan. When I see an athlete do that, James, especially a superstar athlete, a Tom Brady, a Peyton Manning, a David Robinson, a Tim Duncan, to me, it tells me they get the big picture, that they're there to win championships and to be the best player they can be and make their team the best team it can be. Whereas, other people who are just only about the money, and it looks like that's Aaron Rodgers. I can't help but think less of them. And I sure do prefer a guy who is more about the team, and a guy who realizes, and in the case of each of those guys, Brady, Manning, Robinson, Duncan, if you look at it, they probably made more money because they won championships, with endorsements. So if you do the right thing, you're usually rewarded for it. How do you feel about that when you hear a player in any league say, hey man, I just want my money, get me my money? Your thoughts on that?
It's tough. I mean, the average age, the lifetime of the NFL is, just less than 3 years. That's your career. I guess if a guy's in his year 2 or year 3 and he wants a bunch of money, I get that. I really do. But when you have as much, he has tons of money. He's been playing a long time. He has the endorsements. Are you there to put a legacy together as far as your team and people around you? And this goes back to the locker room. Watch the movie Any Given Sunday, where Jamie Foxx's character, is all about him and everything else. And the line just says, and the locker room turns terrible on him. And that's how it really is. And I just, guys going to walk around and see this contract and going, it's all about you. Whereas David Robinson, we know what he did quietly. Tim Duncan, quietly. Tom Brady never said a word. But he just told Robert Kraft, I want the money to go to other people. And same Peyton Manning did that. And Tom Brady did it at the Buccaneers. Aaron's Aaron. And later on, he's a great talent, but he's not a great teammate.
Also in quarterback news this week, James, shortly after Aaron Rodgers was announced to stay at the Packers, Russell Wilson made the move from Seattle to Denver, which ironically was a place that it seemed Aaron Rodgers was considering. Denver, known for bringing in great quarterbacks that ultimately helped them get more wins on the field. Do you like this fit for Russell and the Denver Broncos?
Well, Russell is a class act. In and off the field, and I love him and Mrs. Wilson a lot. I'm huge fans of them, so I love it for him personally and for his career. No offense to Paul Allen's sister, but once Paul Allen, the former Microsoft co-founder who owned the Seahawks and now his family does, she has really not done a good job, and through her team, it made sense for him to get out of there. They have like I said, no offense to Mrs. Allen, I forgot her name now. It's not Mrs. Allen, but no offense to Paul Allen's sister. She's just not him. It makes sense for them. The Bowen family has made it very clear, and they always show up to the Hall of Fame after their dad was put in, into the Hall of Fame. Then he died, couldn't make it, and they still show up. I love the Bowen family, and they have decided to put the team up for sale. We talked about this. It helps to bring a Russell Wilson in for somebody to say, okay, here's a guy who's a class act in and off the field, and you're not burdened with and again, I'm not trying to pick on Aaron, huge, massive salary. You have done a little bit of trading the future. You've done a little bit of Rams, Tampa Bay things to get what you want today, but the Bowen family has made it clear they are taking offers for the Broncos. So it makes sense for the Bowen family in Denver. And we all know that, John Elway has said, you got to bring in a great quarterback. And to John Elway's defense, he's always brought in a quarterback that has character and locker room presence. And that's a pattern. And I know that's for sure what he's trying to do. So it's a great fit for the Bowen family and the fans of Denver. And it's a great fit for the Wilson family. And I'm a big fan of it.
Talking football with James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. By the way, Jeremy KOLOK letting us know Jody Allen is the sister of Paul Allen, who inherited the Seattle Seahawks. You just mentioned Elway, and it's so true, James. You want to win a championship, you need to bring in a great quarterback. That's the way the NFL is. The Washington Commanders, and I got to believe, and we did hear reports, they wanted Russell Wilson. They were hoping they could make that happen. Yesterday, we learned that they trade for Carson Wentz, who, after a one-year audition with a guy who really believed in him, head coach Frank Reich at Indianapolis, it did not work out. So Carson Wentz, now a Washington Commander. As a Cowboy fan at first blush, James, I'm happy. Give me Carson Wentz at the helm 2 times a year against Washington. Your thoughts on Carson Wentz to the Washington Commanders?
Well, he's a great man, personally. And again, I always look at the family first. There's a 38 Special song, I think, and Jeremy will know this, called Hang On Loosely. That's what Dan Snyder, finally decided he wasn't a good general manager, making terrible trades, terrible locker rooms, terrible problems, which are still haunting that team to this day. But at least Dan Snyder said, okay, I'm going to get out of it. So they're trying to rebuild and restructure. Of course, they were looking for a big-name quarterback with the new general manager who's been there the last couple of years. And Dan's still kind of hanging on, but very loosely. It made sense for them to bring in somebody. There's really not a lot out there that they can bring in and keep their cap rate good. So Carson's kind of like, their best chance. At least he knows the game. You could be the best rookie in the world. It's a different game at that level. Most rookies don't make it. Of course, most rookies that are really good go to bad teams. So, but like Peyton Manning says, I wish I could I'm tired of being the rookie record for the most interceptions. And Troy Aikman laughs, I wish I could get rid of the first 2 years of my seasons with the Cowboys. Washington's trying to change Dan Snyder's long mistakes as being a general manager, and it's kind of a filler. I know it doesn't wow a lot of people. For Cowboys fans, I'm sure it creates more fodder because of the whole comparison to Dak Prescott. So there's going to be that element, which makes good. It's why we missed the University of Texas and A&M rivalry. It makes football fun. So that aspect's going to create some things. But I think for Carson and his family, I hope it works out for them. I have no love lost for Dan as a Redskin because I grew up not liking them with my dad, and further not happy how, although he mirrors the Cowboys owner of trying to be the all things to all people, but I like at least when they meet each other, there's going to be the Dak Prescott versus Carson Wentz. And there's nothing wrong with that little rivalry, but I do wish Carson, he's a great man, well, in his pursuits, even though it is for the Redskins.
Will be interesting to see how that plays out. James Allen on the board and on the selection committee of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. James, as always, outstanding with us on the radio. Really appreciated your perspective on everything, specifically at the outset when we talked to you about Jerry Jones. Thanks for taking the time, James. Have a great weekend. We'll do it again next week.
I just want to say a shout out because I didn't think this was going to happen. It was off the cuff when my mom and dad are listening. Thank God that they adopted me, literally. Again, they knew I went to go look for medical reasons, and I thank you, Mom and Dad, for that. And hopefully, like the Robinsons, the Joneses family will embrace this. And also, we got to go to Fuego's for the James Allen Taco.
Yes,
next in April. So we got to do that. And Shannon or Jeremy who wants to come along, we got to get that back in. Obviously, my health issues I still got a couple more weeks. By the way, I'll be in India on a spiritual trip with my daughter next week. But
when I
get back in April, let's go do that. Thank you, everybody listening. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jeremy. And thank you, all the listeners.
Can't wait to hear about the India trip as well. Fuegos and India, James Allen. That's probably reversed on your priority list. You're probably going to go India and Fuegos, but great stuff, James. Thanks so much, man. Have a great weekend.
Dude.
James Allen, my goodness, what a tremendous segment that was with James Allen. Coming up, Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics. Andy's thoughts on Tiger Woods' induction last night into that Golf Hall of Fame. And of course, Andy's comments on the Jerry Jones scandal and the end of the road for the UTSA men's basketball team. Ended, I think, at least a game sooner than we thought it would. We'll get Andy Everett's thoughts on all those things and more. Shannon Salty Sweeney, Jeremy KOLOK doing an all-pro job all morning long as your trusty Soundscape stylist, with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Jeremy KOLOK on fire here this morning. Outstanding James Allen interview there. Always outstanding, but even better than I thought that time. Okay. I got coffee. I got a email from the poet David White. Whenever he writes something, I got to check it out. Yeah, we got to go to Fuegos, no question. Thank you, Fernando. Maxwell, tough crowd. Yeah, we'll get that going with James Allen. All right. Back in a sec. Whoa. Wow. Got to find our Andy Everett to join us shortly. Got an Andy Everett photo here somewhere. There he is. No, that's James Allen. There's Andy Everett. Andy Everett in a moment. Louisa says we love James Allen. Carson Wentz is now a commie. Funny, Maxwell. Oh, I gotta check something. Okay, let's see. Let's put that in here. Andy Everett is ready to go. Pablo Perez, welcome in. Yes. Yes on that question. Either one's fine. Pablo, we have been talking about that all morning. Pablo, we have, in 2.5 hours, we have spent probably 2 hours on Jerry Jones, and we'll do it again here with Andy. But yeah, it is the big story, and we have been all over it all morning long. I've got the Dallas Morning News report here. So if you're just tuning in, we've probably talked more about the Jerry Jones story this morning than any single story within a 3-hour span. Now, I think justifiably so, because it's the huge sports story of the day. It's the Cowboys. It's Jerry Jones. It is salacious. It's all of that. And people want to hear about it, including you. So here we go.
We're back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Join in by dialing 1-800-707-97.
When you hear Katy Perry on this program and even on these radio stations, there is a good chance that the voice of UTSA athletics, host of the golf show on Ticket 760, Saturday mornings at 8 a.m., Mr. Andy Everett, there is a good chance he is somewhere nearby, and he is. Jeremy KOLOK, our Soundscape stylist, playing a little Katy Perry there to honor Mr. Andy Everett. Andy Everett, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Over the years, when I have worked with you and when I have listened to you on the radio, you've talked a lot of Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones. In fact, I remember, I think you even had the fake Jerry and the fake Jimmy on the radio with you from time to time, which was hilarious. It was comedy. But you've paid close attention over the years to the Cowboys and Jerry Jones. Obviously, this is a bombshell. And to me, as I look at the story involving the woman, 25-year-old woman suing Jerry Jones in court papers, saying she is his daughter, the fact that it was reported by the Dallas Morning News, arguably the newspaper of record in Dallas. I mean, you got to expect they did their journalism, their due diligence, and their homework. Your thoughts on the Jerry Jones story?
Well, it happens. I think it happens a lot of times to high-profile athletes. There's a story on HBO about Don Nelson. And when Don Nelson was playing for the Celtics in the late 60s, he had a one-night stand with a flight attendant. And 35 years later, or 30-some years later, a girl sends him a letter and says, "I think I'm your daughter, and I have this evidence, and you spent one night with my mom." And they got together, and Don Nelson was elated. I mean, he was sad that he missed her childhood because it was kept from him, and he'd wished that she had reached out to him sooner. And from all indications, they have a really good relationship. So from the story that was on Real Sports a year or so ago. However, I guess Jerry, I don't know. I haven't read all of the stories on it. I don't know if Jerry is denying that this is the situation or not.
No comment yet from him. No comment yet from him.
So, I mean, I don't know why a lawsuit would be necessary unless she's just asking for money or back support or something along those lines, which she's probably owed. But I would hope that if this is accurate, that Jerry welcomes her with open arms and not only wants to meet with her and challenges or looks at the lawsuit, but wants to be a part of her life and wants to try to understand why it's taken 25 years. I don't know that. I don't think anybody that would be in that position would want to know a little bit about somebody that they're related to. And I would hope that unless she just doesn't want it, that he would seek out trying to find out the backstories and exactly what kind of a relationship she wants to have with him.
Given the information we do know, Andy, is there any part of you that is skeptical that Jerry is actually her father?
Well, I'm sure they're going to do a DNA test or a paternity test of some kind to find out, and unless that's already been done or she has some evidence that indicates that. But no, I don't think people would say it unless they had pretty good. Now some would, but I think most people would not go as far as filing a lawsuit unless there was some pretty good evidence that that was the case. And maybe Jerry's attorneys have said, we're not going to supply a DNA test. And the lawsuit is to say, yes, you are. I want to find out. Again, if I'm pretty comfortable in saying that that's never going to happen to me. But if it did, I would want to know why it took 25 years for them to let me know. And I would also want to find out what I could do to help, especially if I had as much money as Jerry did.
Yeah, it's going to just continue to be a big story. And again, the fact that it was reported by the Dallas Morning News, this woman works in D.C. as a congressional aide to a United States congressman from Texas. She and her mother on a reality show about rich Texas, Dallas area women. And her mother said on the reality show she had all of her riches from a trust fund. And she may not have DNA evidence, but she may have cashed checks over the years from her mother, who was apparently getting these bank deposits from Jerry Jones. But we will move on. Andy Everett, you, in addition to talking Cowboys and basketball and Spurs over the years, you've talked a lot of Tiger Woods. We played audio from last night's Tiger Woods induction into I don't have the exact name in front of me, the World Golf Hall of Fame. Yep. Did you see or hear any of that? And why did it take so darn long to put Tiger Woods into this Golf Hall of Fame?
That's a good question. He probably should have been in there after the first couple of years, but no, I did watch it all. I saw the induction for the people there, and listen, he's a transcending sports star. And the thing I look at from Tiger is he made people who didn't like golf, didn't know what golf was, didn't care about golf, watch golf. And there's very few athletes or people that can make somebody pay attention to a sport that you don't even know that much about. You can't. The thing that I remember very early on is when he won the U.S. Amateur in 1996, the week before he turned pro. The NBC was carrying the U.S. Amateur in his match with Steve Scott. And the World Series of Golf, which was at Firestone and later became a World Golf Championship event that Tiger won 8 times, was also on opposite that. And the leaderboard was unbelievable. It was Greg Norman and Nick Faldo and, Fred Couples and all the guys of the mid-'90s that were the hottest golfers on the PGA Tour. And the Tiger-Steve Scott match dwarfed in comparison to ratings-wise. He killed them. It was triple or quadruple the amount of people watching him than watched the PGA Tour event that day. So the PGA Tour knew they had a superstar early on. He was marketed well with Nike and originally Titleist, and then more Nike and some of the other stuff that came along. And to me, he's my favorite athlete of all time to watch. And I think there's a lot of people that fall in that same boat.
And as I'm watching Tiger's daughter, Sam, give her speech as part of his induction, couldn't help but notice all of the shots of Charlie Woods in the crowd sitting with his family, looking so happy to see his sister up there, but also knowing his dad was being inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame. It kind of feels like a moment we'll see in, 20, 30 years if Charlie is able to achieve even a quarter of what his dad achieved. And if he were to get any accolades, that we would have those moments of him looking onto his father as he's being inducted into World Golf Hall of Fame. It was a very sweet night, a great speech by Sam. Now, you obviously a big golf guy. The UTSA basketball season has just completed. Is this now the time where Andy goes full golf mode?
Yes, pretty much. Saturdays for a while will be spent on the golf course, certainly. And back to Charlie for a second. Now, I don't know if he actually tweeted these things, but there's things that are attributed to him on Twitter that are certainly said in a joking manner and said something along the lines of, if Sam does a good job introducing my dad tonight, I'll let her do the same for me in about 20 years, and things of that nature. So Charlie has got everything in his arsenal to be able to have a great golf career if he wants to work at it. But remember, Tiger talked last night about his mom and dad mortgaging their house, a second mortgage, so he could play AJGA junior events around the country. And had they not done that, he would have never been able to do that and win the 3 AJGA national titles in a row. Charlie's never going to have to worry about mortgaging anybody's house. He's never going to have to worry about money. And if he never plays on the PGA Tour, his family's and his kids down the road are taken care of forever. But if he's going to even come close to playing on the PGA Tour, let alone have anywhere near the success that his dad did, it's going to be because he wants to work at it. And I don't care how successful, how good of a player you are naturally, if you're not going to put in the hours to get good. And that's what Tiger loved so much, was the process of getting good. And he wouldn't leave the driving range until he'd hit his 1000th golf ball and he had hit it correctly. And so will Charlie be willing to put in that much sacrifice to be that good? Potentially it's there, and he's certainly got a great teacher, and that's a good start, but he's got to work at it if he's going to get there.
Going to be great to watch. Andy, just about 90 seconds left here. I am confident that either tomorrow night or Saturday night, they play back-to-back games. The Spurs will win. Greg Popovich will surpass Don Nelson, who you alluded to earlier, with the most regular season wins in NBA history. Your thoughts on Pop's achievement and all he has done in San Antonio?
Well, I think you have to go back to his first year in 97 or 98, 99, the first year of Tim Duncan, when the Spurs got off to such a terrible start. And there was only 1 or 2 games away from him not coaching anymore. And the Spurs, I believe, beat Houston on a Tuesday night, and then they won 45 of the next 53 games and won the title that year in 99. And so how close it came to never happening, and yet it did happen. And listen, let's talk about somebody else that puts in the hours and the effort and the work. And a lot of people think that head coaches just turn everything over to their assistants and they show up on game day. They don't, and Pop certainly doesn't. And I can remember when we used to have radio shows with him at different restaurants around town. After the show, he would go around and talk to everybody at all the tables that were there. And there was one night where he said, "Guys, I can't stay tonight. During the breaks, let me know if you have any questions. I'll come over to your tables."
Wow.
And so he was going home. He had food ordered. He was going home to watch games so he could get ready for the next game. So it's not just going through the motions. He's worked at becoming as great as he is. And my only wish is that he would accept the fact that he is the greatest of all time in that realm.
Yeah, and I think you factor in small market, and he didn't have the assets that Red Auerbach did or Phil Jackson or others. I think he is the greatest of all time. Yeah, right. True. Good point. Andy Everett will be hosting the golf show, as he always does, Saturday morning, 8 a.m. on Ticket 760 in San Antonio. If you're outside San Antonio, just pick up that iHeartRadio app. Go to Ticket 760, 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, and catch the golf show with Andy Everett. Andy, outstanding perspective on a variety of topics there in the last few minutes. We appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and welcome to your full focus now on the sport of golf. Have a lot of fun. We'll talk next week.
Sounds good.
All right. Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics. Crowd goes wild. So, Shannon, we talked a lot of Jerry Jones, and I think we should have this morning because it's a huge story. It's got like everything. The Cowboys are the biggest brand in all of sports. Jerry Jones, maybe the biggest owner with an ego, and he makes more money than anybody else. You add the fact that it's a bit salacious, and it's just a story that people are going to devour, I believe, more and more. We haven't heard from Jerry yet. When do you think we hear from Jerry, and what do you think we hear?
Oh, when do we hear from Jerry? It might not be till we get closer to the draft next month. He's been quiet thus far. One thing seems to get swept under the rug, and something else pops up elsewhere. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hear from him for some time.
He is laying low. We'll continue to track that story. Shannon, Jeremy, outstanding Wednesday. No, it's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. We'll do this again in 21 hours.
Yes.
Woo.
Let's do it.
Great job from both of you. Thanks to Andy Everett, who we just heard from. and James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, outstanding as always. Tomorrow, Coach A, Paul Alexander, oh my goodness, his take on Jerry Jones, football, and a whole lot more. Enjoy this Thursday. It's going to be beautiful out there across Texas. We will see you tomorrow. Adios, amigos.
Let's move on.
I just told Jeremy he played Jerry at the end saying, let's move on. Let's move on. All right, y'all. I will see you mañana. And tomorrow's going to be the night Pop gets the record. I said that last night, but it's really going to be tomorrow night. Have a great Thursday. Get outside. Sunny and in the mid-70s today across Central and South Texas. See you tomorrow.